Welcome to the Digital Nomads podcast. We're here to give you the latest insights on everything digital from inside the agency.
All right, we're going to talk about the Google algorithm update, the leak.
Yes.
We're going to go through that today. So there's a lot that came through, something like 15,000 different metrics that were listed in a huge GitHub API documentation.
It was like Christmas Day.
It was good.
Was released. It was a great day.
Yeah.
We nerded hard out on that.
We did. We spent a lot of time going through that and trying to all the different metrics and different signals that Google's leveraging.
Yeah.
And we're not the only ones that was. So I know that Search Engine, Land, SEJ, some of the big companies also went in and pulled it apart, had a look at the different data and insights of what we could find.
Yes.
So I've got a list here. I know that you've got some notes as well, some kind of key things that we're taking away from it. Nothing too crazy.
Nothing too, new as such. It's just more reinforcing what we've been doing.
Yep.
The interesting thing is that Google didn't actually put a weight behind each of these metrics. It just says it looks at these or it, demotes your website based on these, but we're not too sure of how much for each metric.
Yeah, and they did, I think they came out with an official statement on it as well, and it said something along these lines of try not to take everything that you're reading as truth. Yeah. But it's not that it's not true. It was more just around, understanding the weight of what something may be. So, for instance, they might talk about, I've got some stuff here like page rank. They do use page rank as a metric. So page rank being something that we thought was being used, and that's why Ahrefs and SEM have DR and page ranking metrics. Yeah. But there was never that confirmation from Google on their side saying this is a thing. Now we have that.
It is a thing.
It is a thing.
Yeah.
But then I think what Google's come out and said is like, just because you see PageRank being a thing, that doesn't mean, go falsify your PageRank and increase it astronomically, because that's a very small piece of the puzzle, or could be one of the smaller pieces of the puzzle in comparison to other metrics. Yeah. So, cool. Do you want to go through one of your highlights that you've got?
Yeah. So one that I found super interesting is how Google measures user engagement and specifically good clicks and bad clicks on a website. Yep. So there was a name for it called Nav Boost. So it looks at how easily accessible your website is for a user to navigate through the different pages of a website. So it actually demotes websites that don't have an optimal navigation bar on their website. Okay. So that can also speak to having abandoned pages on a website. It's not optimal, but it's interesting how it takes into account the design and structure and how people are using your website. So, which we have found working on clients' websites. Sure. We've worked on a few that don't necessarily want to invest into redesigning their website. They just want an SEO campaign. So we're building off what we think is probably not the best or like the most modern website design. Yeah. And those sites do tend to struggle to rank. Yeah. Whereas websites where they've come to us and we've redesigned it and they've jumped onto an SEO campaign, they rank well. And it's optimized not just for the search engines to rank, but it's also optimized for users. And I think that was like a really key thing that I took from it, is that you're writing content, you're designing a website for users, not to manipulate the Google rankings. Yeah. So
yeah, that's right. I think when you're talking about that as well, like we did see something we're testing at the moment as well in-house, but and I'm only kind of piecing this together now that we're talking about it, but that navigation and that nav boost concept around that, was it the keep it simple, stupid idea, right? We're talking about it yesterday. Joking about it, but the keep it simple, stupid. And I think there is that element of maybe where that also falls into that nav boost concept as well, of not over curating something or making it too complex just because of a design standard of going, I can make this
different,
whether it's an icon that's a pop-up and a custom pop-up that slides in from the side of the screen. Maybe that actually has a hindering factor because it's not generally easy accessible for most users. So interesting one anyway. But cool. Well, I think I'll talk on the good click, bad click, because there is a few other things on that. They did mention the good click and bad click metric within the documentation, which they measure the success of if somebody lands on your website and then leaves instantly and potentially goes to the person underneath. So say you're in SERP listing, you're position 1, and they land and then leave and go to position 2. that's considered a bad click because it's a bad user experience. That's something that they are now measuring or have been measuring that we're now aware of. I know that some people did some testing early on in this and called it that pogo sticking was the old sort of SEO term that people used for it. That is a measurable factor and an interesting one at that. So landing on a website and having a good experience, that first experience is going to be paramount, because if they do land and leave and not getting what they're looking for, they may leave.
Yeah.
And if they do leave, that's considered that bad click. Yeah. So that was an interesting one. They are measuring. So yeah, cool.
One that I also found very interesting is the quality content. So I feel like we've discussed plenty of times in other podcasts of not batching AI content, not just relying on AI to generate content for a website, it really spoke to a content effort score. Which,
I love this one.
Yeah, I know you're all about.
This was my favorite takeaway for the leak.
Yeah,
was the effort score, which
is interesting because I remember we changed our strategy. We were doing some testing and we're like, we're going to put in a solid amount of effort into these blog posts.
Exactly.
Spending the time, spending a day, a couple of days, making sure that the content we're putting out is better and going above and beyond competitors and what's already out there.
Yeah.
And we saw great pickup from that. And then the leak came out and they're like, Google's actually like A+ for effort, guys.
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Actually recognize it.
So that was interesting. So making sure that you're putting content out there that's unique and you've got up-to-date stats, and that also speaks to another area of content freshness.
Yeah.
So rather than just batching heaps of content on your website and letting it sit and decay and potentially not perform, actually going through your existing content and updating it. So, if there's a blog that speaks to 2001 stats for, best web tools.
Yes.
It's 2024, they're going to be out of date. So going through and updating content like that, and Google recognizes that.
Yeah.
Another thing is that it takes into account the overall quality of the content on your website. So if you've got blog content there or pages on your website that's not performing, it's actually hindering the overall performance of your website. So it's better to, either go through and optimize it to rank for a particular term that's relevant to your website's subject matter, or completely deleting it. You said a really good quote the other day, actually, in a client meeting of, you're only as strong as your weakest post.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of that concept, isn't it? It's like the strongest, the weakest link in business, and it's the same as strong as your weakest post or weakest piece of content on your website now. So that's again, that content and the effort that is being put into the content is being recognized. So
you should tagline that quote. You should,
just copyright, trademark to Ben.
Yeah. Solid.
I do. Yeah, I did see the effort score as being something that you could dive into a little bit more of how they measure how much work and effort has been put into a page. So that's, Google now doesn't just look at the plagiarism of content between your content on your website and somebody else, but also the content that is on your website and whether you're just replicating your own content. And that is also subsequently an effort to it as well. Yeah. Effort can be duplication of content. If you're going to rewrite all your content, the content is 100% unique, developed for your website, written for your website and only your website, that's a higher effort score. Unique imagery that's not being used anywhere else on Google, unique infographics and any sort of PDFs or documentation, videos, fit for purpose videos that are created again for that page. All of these things they take a lot of time.
Yeah.
And people sit there and go, I don't have the time to do that. And that's where then Google is rewarding the people that are going to put in the time to do that.
Which then also goes in hand with the user experience. All that additional value is providing extra value for users, which then keeps users on your website. You get good clicks. Google's just...
It makes sense.
Yeah, it all works together.
Yeah, when we took all of this away and broke down, the documentation and kind of these key highlights, there wasn't anything that was like, why would they do that?
Yeah.
It was, of course, they've done that because of user experience. And I feel like this is why, for a long time, Google just had that, let's just put out the statement of creating content for users, because all of the metrics align with that.
Yeah.
So if you are just creating good content for users, everything that we're talking about here will naturally just occur.
Yeah.
As opposed to creating content for ranking.
Yeah. Exactly.
When you start creating it for ranking, you look at plagiarizing content, you're grabbing the best content you can find, you're batching AI, you're getting keyword stuffing. It doesn't work. So, what else do we have listed on there? Site radius, that was an interesting one. So again, something that we are seeing across our site and some other client sites that we're working on, but the understanding that Google very much identifies your website as the niche that you're in and gives it somewhat of a radius of your relevancy and the industry that you're relevant within.
Puts you in a box.
It does. It puts you in a box.
Puts you in a box.
It puts you in a box. We don't know how small that box is. That's an interesting thing. Yeah. So, whether I'll use as an example, right? So we're a full digital marketing agency. We provide, services across, paid SEO, but we're also a web development agency. So are we in a box for digital marketing, which includes web? Or does it not include web?
Yeah.
How restrictive is site radius? And it's about creating the relevancy for the website to allow you to rank for particular terms, and Google may not favor you because it puts you into a particular niche. It's kind of we're in this kind of hypothetical on this at the moment. We only know that it's a thing, and I feel like I can see your brain ticking over now.
It all makes sense.
Yeah.
Think about it though. It's like when you meet someone new and you're talking to them and you're getting to know them, and that's like blog content for Google. You publish content out on a website to be like...
It's just taking a turn. Yes. Carry on.
It's just clicked. It makes sense. So the blog content helps build up that character of like, oh, you guys are putting content out there about SEO. And, when you get to know someone, you're trying to figure out what sort of box you're putting them into of like, oh, this is Ben, the managing director of Digital Nomads. And I feel like in SEO, to bring it back, is that the blog content builds that topical authority. So
for sure,
by having, we have a lot of content around SEO and digital marketing, and we've got content on web, but we do know there's opportunity for us to produce more content for web to increase our rankings there. So, and that's where we can see that Google's put us in the box more for digital marketing and SEO at the moment.
For sure.
So it'll be interesting to test we're going to introduce our website side to Google and
see what it does with
see if he or she
gives us another box.
I was like, okay,
for sure.
Web.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, look, it's a
way of thinking
great
about
analogy.
It,
great. Yeah. But that is where we're at with it. Yeah. It's, we're getting these metrics and ideas and we're testing a lot. Like we test a lot of different theories, a lot of different data leaks and we've got a lot of accounts that we can work within.
Yeah.
As being our own as well. And by doing that as a team, we get to test these things that Google has somewhat leaked, not that they leaked, to try and get some weighting on this.
Yeah.
But as it all falls, ultimately, it's all around that user experience, right? So, we're spending time and putting a lot of effort in, page effort into the content that we're putting out there. This is an example of one of them. We're sat here doing a podcast. This is effort to be able to create educational content for, whether it's for blogs, whether it's for YouTube, different channels, distribution in video, be able to create video, create infographics, downloadables. We're putting the effort in and we definitely see the reward from it.
Yeah.
So SEO's definitely got harder.
Yeah.
It's definitely got harder. I think without going through any of the other metrics, I'd recommend probably go and read. I'm sure we'll have an article on it and breaking down all the metrics ourselves. Or
another podcast.
We do another podcast. If you've got any other questions on it, just let us know and we'll do another podcast and break those down. But I think the big takeaway is that you put in the effort for it and you focus on that user first and you get the results at the end of the day. So that's what we're seeing. So interesting. It's been fun.
Yeah.
And we'll leave it at that for the day.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Catch you next time.
Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for our next episode.